The afternoon sunlight caught the crystal champagne flutes as I examined them on the display shelf. Each one was etched with delicate scrollwork, the kind of elegant detail that Emily would appreciate. At 62 years old, I developed an eye for quality, whether it was in naval equipment during my 30 years of service or in wedding gifts for my favorite niece. The jeweler smiled as I nodded my approval, and I was reaching for my wallet when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost dismissed it. Spam calls were a daily nuisance. But something made me glance at the screen. It wasn't a call. It was a text message. Don't let Emily marry David Chen. Check his real name. This wedding is a mistake. My hand froze halfway to my pocket. I read it again, feeling my chest tighten. The jeweler was saying something about gift wrapping, but his voice seemed distant, muffled. I looked up at him, trying to arrange my face into something resembling normalcy. Sir? Would you like these wrapped? Yes, please. My voice came out steady, but my mind was racing. I paid for the glasses in a daze, barely registering the transaction. Outside the jewelry store, Charleston's historic district bustled, with tourists and locals enjoying the April warmth, but I stood motionless on the sidewalk, staring at my phone. I called the number. It rang 4 times, then went to a generic voicemail. No name, no message. Just the mechanical voice, asking me to leave a callback. I hung up without speaking. Who would send something like this? And why now, just 3 days before Emily's wedding? My niece had been planning this event for 8 months. The ceremony was set for Sunday afternoon at Magnolia Plantation, followed by a reception for 150 guests. My sister Karen had been coordinating everything, and I'd contributed toward the venue cost of $8,500. Emily was like a daughter to me. After my wife Margaret passed away 4 years ago, Emily had been there every week, making sure I ate proper meals, helping me navigate the loneliness. When she'd introduced me to David 6 months ago, I'd been genuinely happy for her. David Chen, 29 years old, software consultant, moved to Charleston from California 2 years ago. Polite, well-spoken, always called me sir, with what seemed like genuine respect. Emily had met him at a networking event for tech professionals. She was a graphic designer, and they'd bonded over their shared interest in digital innovation. He'd proposed after 4 months, which seemed fast, but Emily had always known her own mind. I walked to my car, the gift bag with the champagne flutes feeling suddenly heavy. My phone buzzed again. He's not who he claims to be. I have proof. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m., Joe's Coffee on King Street. Come alone. Don't tell Emily or David. I'm trying to help her. My heart hammered. This was either an elaborate prank or something very serious. I got in my car, but didn't start the engine. Instead, I sat there, watching tourists photograph the colorful houses, trying to decide what to do. I could call Emily right now, show her these messages, let her handle it. But what if this was just someone trying to sabotage her happiness? What if it was an ex-girlfriend of David's, jealous and vindictive? I'd been in the Navy long enough to know that information could be weaponized, that trust could be shattered by carefully placed lies. But what if it was real? I drove home to my house in the suburbs, my mind turning over every interaction I'd had with David. Had there been any red flags? Any moments that seemed off? I thought back to Christmas dinner, when David had talked about his childhood in San Jose, his parents who'd immigrated from Taiwan, his younger sister studying medicine at Stanford. He'd shown us photos on his phone. Everything had seemed normal, even endearing. That evening, I tried to distract myself with the Braves game, but I couldn't focus. During the 7th inning, I called my old friend Patrick, who'd retired from the Navy the same year I did. Patrick now worked in corporate security in Atlanta. "Michael, what's going on, buddy?" His voice was warm, familiar. "Patrick, I need some advice. Hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to verify another person's identity, their background, what would be the legal way to do that?" There was a pause. This about Emily's wedding? I shouldn't have been surprised. Patrick had met Emily at several Navy reunions. He knew how close we were. Maybe. I just want to be sure. Background checks are legal if you have consent or legitimate concern. But Michael, if you're having doubts, maybe you should talk to Emily first. What if I'm wrong? What if I ruin everything based on nothing? And what if you're right? After we hung up, I sat in the dark living room, Margaret's photo on the mantel catching the moonlight from the window. She would have known what to do. Margaret always had good instincts about people. I remembered her once telling me that a subordinate of mine wasn't trustworthy, and 6 months later, that sailor was caught stealing equipment. Margaret had seen something I'd missed. What had I missed about David? I didn't sleep well. By 9:30 the next morning, Friday, I was already parked near Joe's Coffee, watching the entrance. The coffee shop was busy with the morning rush, professionals grabbing their caffeine fix before work. I'd arrived 30 minutes early, an old habit from the military. I wanted to observe, to assess the situation before committing. At exactly 10 o'clock, a woman walked up to the coffee shop entrance, paused, and looked around. She was about 40, wearing business casual attire, carrying a leather folder. She checked her phone, then entered. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. I'm at the corner table. Gray blouse. I waited another minute, then went inside. The coffee shop smelled like espresso and cinnamon rolls. I spotted her immediately. She wasn't smiling. I bought a coffee first, another delaying tactic, then walked to her table. She stood up, extending her hand. Mr. Richardson, I'm Jennifer Walsh. Thank you for coming. Her handshake was firm. I sat down, keeping my expression neutral. You sent those messages. I did. I'm a private investigator, licensed in South Carolina and California. She slid a business card across the table. It looked legitimate. I've been hired by a client who has a vested interest in exposing David Chen's activities. What activities? Jennifer opened her folder and pulled out a photograph. It showed David, or someone who looked exactly like him, standing next to a different woman. They were both dressed formally, her hand showing a wedding ring. This photo was taken 14 months ago in Sacramento, California. That woman is my client, Rebecca Morrison. She married the man she knew as Daniel Park in October of 2023. 3 months after the wedding, he disappeared with $42,000 from their joint account, along with several pieces of her jewelry and her grandmother's engagement ring. I stared at the photo. It was definitely David. Same face, same slight build, same way of standing with his weight slightly forward. You're saying he's a con artist. I'm saying the man Emily knows as David Chen has used at least 3 different identities that I've been able to confirm. Daniel Park in California. David Liu in Oregon before that, where he defrauded another woman of $37,000. And now David Chen, here in Charleston. She pulled out more documents. Driver's licenses with different names but the same face. Screenshots of social media profiles, each carefully constructed with different backstories. Bank statements showing large deposits, followed by sudden withdrawals. My client hired me 2 months ago. She'd been trying to find Daniel, David, whatever his real name is, for over a year. She wanted justice, but more importantly, she wanted to prevent him from hurting anyone else. I traced his activity from California to Portland, then to Charleston. When I found him, I discovered he was engaged to another woman, Emily Richardson. My coffee had gone cold in my hand. How did you find me? Your niece listed you as an emergency contact on a medical form last year. Public records showed your address. I've been watching David for 3 weeks, documenting everything. When I saw the wedding announcement, I knew I had to act quickly. Why not go to the police? Jennifer's expression darkened. Because he's very careful. He never uses violence. He's not technically committing identity theft in the legal sense because he obtains legitimate documents, probably through forged references and false applications. The fraud is civil, not criminal in most cases, and by the time his victims realize what's happened, he's gone. Rebecca pressed charges in California, but without him present, the case stalled. If we can catch him before he disappears again, in the act of this pattern, the authorities might finally take action. Does Emily know any of this? Not yet. That's where I need your help. If David suspects he's been discovered, he'll vanish. Emily will never see him again, and he'll just move on to the next victim in another state. But if we can expose him publicly, with evidence, in a way that he can't escape, then maybe we can stop this pattern. I felt sick. My niece, My Emily was about to marry a predator. She won't believe this. She's in love with him. That's what he does, Mr. Richardson. He's very good at creating an image of the perfect partner. Attentive, romantic, respectful. He researches his targets, finds women who are successful but lonely, who want to believe in love. Emily is perfect for him. Single, financially stable, with a family that would contribute to wedding expenses. The venue, I said quietly. I gave them money for the venue. $8,500. Karen contributed another $6,000. David claimed his parents would wire funds from Taiwan for the reception costs, but that wire never came, did it? He said there were banking delays? I nodded slowly. That had happened just last week. David had apologized profusely, said there were international transfer issues, that his parents were elderly and confused by the technology. Emily had brushed it off, said they'd cover it themselves. He's positioning himself, Jennifer continued. After the wedding, he'll gain access to Emily's accounts. He'll probably suggest combining finances, maybe starting a business together, something that requires her to invest substantial money. Then, within 3 to 6 months, he'll disappear. Emily will be left with debt, possibly ruined credit, and deep emotional trauma. I thought of Rebecca in that photo, smiling on what she thought was her wedding day, not knowing she was being set up for devastating betrayal. I thought of Emily, who'd already sent out invitations, planned every detail, talked excitedly about the honeymoon in Savannah. What do you need from me? Jennifer pulled out another document. I need you to help me verify his identity at the wedding. I've contacted Rebecca, and she's willing to fly to Charleston. If she can confront him in front of witnesses, with documentation of their marriage, the police will have to act. But I need someone inside the wedding, someone Emily trusts, to facilitate this without tipping him off beforehand. You want me to let Emily walk up to that altar not knowing. I want to give her a life not destroyed by this man. Mr. Richardson, if you tell her now, what do you think will happen? She'll confront David. He'll have explanations, probably very convincing ones. He'll say, I'm a stalker, that Rebecca is a crazy ex-girlfriend, that the documents are forged. He's done this before. He's very skilled at manipulation. Emily will want to believe him, and then he'll suggest they elope, move up the timeline, get married quickly before anyone can interfere. Emily will lose everything. I closed my eyes. Jennifer was right. Emily was stubborn, independent. If I came to her with accusations against the man she loved, she'd defend him. She might even cut me out of her life for trying to sabotage her happiness. There has to be another way. Show me one. We've tried legal channels in 2 other states. He's always one step ahead. This is our chance to stop him, Michael. For Emily, for Rebecca, for whatever other women he's planning to target. I looked at the documents spread across the table. Different names, same face, same smile he'd given me at Christmas dinner. Same handshake he'd offered when I'd welcomed him into our family. What exactly do you need me to do? For the next hour, Jennifer outlined the plan. It was risky and would require precise timing. Rebecca would arrive Sunday morning. She'd wait until the ceremony began, then enter with Jennifer and the documentation they'd compiled. I would need to delay the ceremony somehow, create a window of time for them to arrive and present their evidence. Jennifer had already contacted the Charleston Police Department, and they'd agreed to have officers present, given the evidence she'd provided. Won't Emily hate me for this? I asked. Maybe at first, but she'll thank you later. And Mr. Richardson, consider the alternative. Would you rather have her hate you for protecting her, or watch her be destroyed by this man? I left the coffee shop feeling like I was carrying a tremendous weight. The next day and a half passed in a blur. I saw Emily twice. Once at a family dinner Friday evening, where David charmed everyone with stories about his supposed job promotion. I watched him carefully, looking for cracks in the facade. But he was flawless. He even pulled me aside and thanked me for accepting him into the family, for giving Emily away at the wedding since Karen's ex-husband wasn't in the picture. It means a lot, sir, he said. I know I'm getting the better end of this deal. Emily's incredible. I wanted to grab him by the collar. Instead, I smiled and said, just take care of her. Always, he replied. And I believed he believed it. That's what made him so dangerous. Saturday was the rehearsal. We went through the ceremony at Magnolia Plantation, the wedding planner directing everyone to their positions. The venue was beautiful, with live oaks draped in Spanish moss, azaleas in full bloom, the historic house providing a perfect backdrop. Emily was radiant, laughing as she practiced walking down the aisle. David stood at the altar, watching her with what looked like genuine love. I thought about Margaret, about how she'd see right through this. I thought about all the trust exercises in the Navy, all the times I'd had to make split-second decisions that affected people's lives. This was worse. This was personal. That night, I barely slept. My phone buzzed at 6 Sunday morning. Jennifer, we're in position. Rebecca's at the hotel. Police are briefed. Are you ready? I texted back. Yes. The morning passed in slow motion. I put on my suit, the same one I'd worn to Margaret's funeral. I drove to the plantation, arriving early to help with final setup. Emily was in the bridal suite with Karen and her bridesmaids, getting ready. I could hear their laughter through the door. Guests started arriving at 1:30. The ceremony was scheduled for 2. I stood near the entrance, greeting people, checking my phone every few minutes. At 1:45, Jennifer texted, 10 minutes out. I walked to where the wedding planner was organizing the procession. I need to talk to Emily for just a moment, I told her, before she walks down. Now? We're about to start. Please. It's important. Just 2 minutes. She frowned but nodded. I knocked on the bridal suite door. Karen opened it. Michael, what's wrong? I need 1 minute with Emily. Alone. Emily appeared behind her mother, resplendent in her wedding gown. Uncle Mike? Is everything okay? I stepped inside and closed the door. Karen started to protest, but Emily touched her arm. It's fine, Mom. Give us a second. When we were alone, I looked at my niece, this woman I'd watched grow from a baby to the accomplished professional before me. I thought about all the time she'd been there for me, all the Sunday dinners, all the conversations about Margaret, about life, about moving forward after loss. Emily, I need you to trust me. Her smile faded. What's happening? In a few minutes, something is going to happen that will be confusing and upsetting. I need you to know that everything I've done has been to protect you. I love you more than anything in this world. Uncle Mike, you're scaring me. Do you trust me? Of course I do, but then remember that. Whatever happens out there, remember that I love you and I'm trying to help. Before she could respond, there was a commotion outside. Voices rising, someone saying, You can't go in there. The ceremony's about to start. Jennifer's voice, firm and professional. Charleston PD is with us. We need to speak with David Chen. I opened the door. Emily pushed past me, her dress rustling as she moved quickly down the hallway toward the ceremony site. I followed, my heart pounding. The scene was chaos. Guests were murmuring, turning in their seats. David stood at the altar, his expression confused. 2 police officers flanked the entrance, and between them stood Jennifer and a woman I recognized from the photograph, Rebecca Morrison. Rebecca saw David and her face went white, then red. That's him, she said, her voice carrying across the venue. That's my husband, Daniel Park. David's confusion turned to panic, just for a split second, before he recovered. I don't know what this is, he said, his voice steady. I've never seen this woman before. Emily had stopped halfway down the aisle. What's going on? Jennifer stepped forward, holding up a folder. Miss Richardson, my name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a private investigator. The man you know as David Chen is actually using a false identity. His real name, as far as we've been able to determine, is Daniel Park, though he's used multiple aliases. He married Rebecca Morrison in Sacramento, California, in October 2023, then defrauded her of over $40,000 before disappearing. That's insane, Emily said, but her voice wavered. She looked at David. Tell them they're wrong. David's expression was earnest, wounded. Emily, I don't know these people. This is some kind of mistake. I've never been married. I've never even been to Sacramento. Jennifer handed documents to one of the police officers, who walked them to Emily. That's your marriage certificate to Rebecca Morrison. That's a driver's license in the name Daniel Park with his photo. These are bank records showing the fraud. This is documentation of a similar pattern in Portland, Oregon, under the name David Liu. Emily took the papers with shaking hands. I moved to stand beside her, ready to catch her if she collapsed. She looked at the documents, then at David, then at Rebecca. This isn't possible. Rebecca stepped forward. I thought the same thing when I married him. He was perfect, attentive, everything I'd been looking for. We had a beautiful wedding. 3 months later, I woke up and he was gone, along with everything of value in our home. I've been tracking him for over a year. I'm so sorry. I wanted to stop him before he hurt you the way he hurt me. David's mask finally cracked. His perfect composure slipped, and for just a moment, I saw something cold and calculating in his eyes. Then he turned and ran. He didn't make it far. The officers moved quickly, intercepting him before he reached the parking lot. There was a brief struggle, and then he was in handcuffs, being read his rights. Emily stood frozen, the documents falling from her hands. Karen rushed to her, wrapping her arms around her daughter. The guests sat in stunned silence. I bent down and picked up the papers, gathering them carefully. One of the police officers approached me. Mr. Richardson? We'll need statements from you and Miss Walsh. Of course. Emily pulled away from Karen and looked at me. Her eyes were red, her carefully applied makeup starting to run. You knew. Since Friday. Jennifer contacted me. Why didn't you tell me? Because he would have convinced you I was wrong. He would have found a way to explain everything, and then he would have taken you for everything you have. I couldn't let that happen. She stared at me, and I couldn't read her expression. Anger, betrayal, relief, shock, all of it mixed together. Then she turned and walked back toward the bridal suite, still in her wedding gown, moving like someone in a dream. Karen touched my arm. Did you do the right thing? I don't know, I admitted, but it was the only thing I could do. The plantation staff moved quickly to manage the situation. They announced that the ceremony was canceled, but that refreshments would still be available for guests who needed time to process what had happened. Most people left quickly, whispering among themselves. This would be the talk of Charleston social circles for months. Rebecca approached me, her eyes also red. Thank you for helping. I know this was hard. Does it get easier? For Emily, I mean. Eventually. It took me a long time to stop feeling stupid, to stop blaming myself for not seeing the signs. But I'm rebuilding. She will too. Jennifer joined us, handing me her card. The police will follow up. With multiple victims now willing to testify and evidence of interstate fraud, they can build a federal case. He won't do this again. I found Emily 2 hours later, still in her wedding gown, sitting alone in the plantation garden. Karen had tried to get her to change, but she'd refused. I sat down beside her on the bench. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. I feel so stupid. You're not stupid. You're human. He's a professional con artist, Emily. He made a career out of making women fall in love with him. There must have been signs, things I missed. Maybe. Or maybe he was just that good at hiding who he really was. She wiped her eyes. I introduced him to everyone. To you, to Mom, to all my friends. How do I face any of them? The same way you face everything else. With your head up. You didn't do anything wrong, Emily. You loved someone. That's not a crime or a shame. He's the one who should be ashamed. I was going to marry him. I was going to spend my life with him. But you didn't. That's what matters. You're safe. You still have your career, your home, your future. He didn't take those things from you. He took my trust. How am I supposed to trust anyone again? I didn't have an answer for that. I put my arm around her shoulders, and she leaned into me, her wedding dress crinkling against my suit. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from the pain, but I'd make the same choice again, Emily, every time. I know, she whispered. I know you would. We sat there as the sun moved lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the garden. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear the caterers packing up the unused reception supplies. $8,500 for a venue, $6,000 from Karen, probably another $10,000 that Emily had spent on her dress, flowers, photographer, and everything else. All of it gone in an afternoon. But she was safe. That was worth every penny. 3 months later, I received a call from Jennifer Walsh. David Chen, whose real name turned out to be Marcus Wong, had been convicted on multiple counts of fraud and identity theft. He was facing 8 to 12 years in federal prison. Rebecca Morrison had gotten some of her money back through restitution orders. There were at least 2 other victims who'd come forward after his arrest, women in Texas and Florida who'd been too ashamed to report the crimes initially. Emily was seeing a therapist, working through the trauma. She'd thrown herself into her graphic design work, taking on new clients, building her portfolio. She still came to Sunday dinner at my house, though the conversation was sometimes strained, careful. She'd gone back to using her maiden name on social media, deleted all photos of David, blocked anyone who mentioned the wedding. But she was healing. Slowly, painfully, but healing. I visited Margaret's grave one afternoon and told her about everything that had happened. I like to think she approved of my choices, that she would have done the same thing. As I placed fresh flowers on her headstone, my phone buzzed. It was Emily. Thank you for Sunday dinner. And for everything else. I'm still working through it all, but I wanted you to know, I understand why you did what you did. I love you, Uncle Mike. I stood there in the cemetery, reading that message over and over, feeling something tight in my chest finally loosen. I'd made the right choice. It had cost something. Emily's innocence, her trust, her wedding day, but I'd saved her from something far worse. That night, I went home and finally put away the champagne flutes I'd bought that day in the jewelry store. They sat in my cabinet, unused, but not unwanted. Someday, maybe years from now, Emily would meet someone genuine, someone worthy of her. There would be another wedding, a real one. And when that day came, these glasses would be waiting. Until then, I'd do what I'd always done. Be there for her, protect her when I could, and trust that she had the strength to rebuild from this betrayal. Because that's what family does. That's what love requires. Not perfection. Not always knowing the right answer, but showing up when it matters most, even when it's hard, even when the choice might cost you everything. I'd made my choice on that sidewalk outside the jewelry store, reading that first text message, and I'd make it again.